Burning Issy, Melvin Burgess, Chapter 5. What does our master order us to do with spies? Demanded Demdike. Lizzie gave me a shake and prodded me in the ribs, edging me closer to the flames. Burn 'em, she hissed. And what does he promise us for the bodies and souls of Christians? Power and wealth, replied James on the other side. Gil squealed, and I could see his arms being forced up back. His face was white, but Gil was no coward, and he was not to be put down. I'm not frightened of you, he told the old witch. My father can deal with you. He gets called in to undo all your spells. You can't harm me. It is a challenge, jeered Demdike. The cunning man against the witch. Do you want to find out? Lizzie gave a short, barking laugh. My mother can't make his father's bones burn the flesh off him, she snorted, and so can I. All the time she was edging me into the embers of the edge of the fire. She knew I had a fear of fire. Already I had to hold my face to one side to avoid the heat. Gil just repeated, I'm not frightened of you, in a high voice. Demdike laughed. This is the boy who knows so much. He begs hexes off me every time he sees me. I told you to come to Malkin Tower, and I teach you something, and so I will. She gestured to Alison. Bring me the wax, she ordered. Alison ran off into the hovel and returned with a lump of dirty black wax. She knelt down by the fire to warm it in her hands and make it workable. Meanwhile, Lizzie was still prodding me in the back with her hard, spiteful finger. You'll burn, you little rabbit. You'll burn, she kept hissing, pushing me closer and closer to the fire so that my bare feet stumbled on the hot ashes. At last I tripped, and if she hadn't have hauled me back at the last second, I'd have fallen head first into the red-hot mass. Excuse me. Don't push me. I can't stand the fire, I screamed, and shoved back so violently, and strong as she was, Lizzie all but fell over and lost her grip. Demdike turned to me. The girl out of the north, she said. Isabella Stahl. My name's not Stahl, I replied shakily. I'm an orphan. No one knows my real name. Isabel Stahl, repeated Demdike. I knew your grandmother and your mother. I know the fire's waiting for you. If you'll give me muster your soul, I'll save you. I stared at her. She nodded blindly back. But before any more was said, Alison handed her the warm wax and she began to model with it. With dirty, deft fingers, quickly formed the shapeless lump into a rough figure. Then she reached out, wrapped a coil of Gil's hair round her finger and tugged it out of his head. Gil shouted and jumped, but James held him fast. Demdike worked the hair into the figure and again reached out a hand. Now she wanted to know his face. Her long fingers moved over him, caressing his cheeks, feeling gently into the sockets of his eyes, around the ears, his nose, his lips. Bite her, I thought, but Gil was paralysed. He closed his eyes, stopped breathing. She made herself familiar with every corner of her face. She took up her model again, pinching it and stroking it confidently and quickly. When she held it up a few seconds later, it was Gil's own face that stared back at him from the witch's hand. A rough image, but it was him. He made a lunge for it, but Demdike jerked it back and laughed. He knows enough to be scared, she jeered. What shall I do with it? Give it to you? She held it out close to him, but James held him tight and he couldn't move. The fire? She asked. She held the little model near the embers. It wouldn't easily melt. Don't, croaked Gil. Give it to me. I'll do whatever you want. Demdike leered triumphantly. Alison, fetch me Tib, she commanded. Alison fetched a basket, which she laid before the old woman. A quick little snout appeared over the edge of the rushwork, and out snaked a long, sinuous shape. It was like a weasel or a stoat, but larger. The eyes were entirely white like Demdike's. It too was blind. It stood upright like a man and turned its head from side to side, nose in the air, in exactly the way Demdike had done when she was searching us out behind the wall. Then it let out a shrill cry, jumped out of the basket and across the ground to her. It ran up her leg and round her side, where it seemed to burrow under her clothes. Even Lizzie seemed cowed by this strange long creature. I pressed back into her. I was looking at Demdike's devil. "This is my imp, Tib," said Demdike softly. "I gave him my soul, and I feed him my blood, and he does what harm I wish. Watch." She lifted up her shawl and the rags on her side and exposed a stripe of tired flesh to us. Sorry, I'll say that again. She lifted up her shawl on the rags of her side and exposed a stripe of tired flesh to us. She was every bit as thin as Jeanette, and I thought how horrible it was to have lived this starved for so long. On her waist was a dark mark, and to this the creature nosed its way. It moved its head quickly up and down. Demdike let out a soft cry, and the blood flowed. Tib began to lap it up. "There, drink, and do harm for me, Tib," murmured the witch. There was a silence except for the hiss and crackle of the fire, and Demdike's regular little breaths. Tib hung silently off her, only scratching the wound and squeaking impatiently when the flow was too thin. Demdike straightened up and pushed him away. The creature squealed angrily and tried to find its way back under her clothes. "I'll have another drink for you today, Deb dear," she said. She took him up by the scruff of his neck and showed him to Gil. "Tib will make a mark on you and drink your blood. Then he will take your soul and you will be one of us." Gil twisted to one side, but James grabbed his jerkin and pulled it up. His chest heaved and the whites of his eyes flashed in the firelight as Demdike came with the imp. When she got close, Gil began to fight with all his strength. "I won't do it, I won't do it, let me go," he shrilled, tearing his jerkin desperately down, trying to escape. To my surprise, Demdike backed off. "If you won't join us, then you'll have to buy your mannequin," she told me. She handed the imp back to Alison, who quickly put it back in the basket. Demdike crept close to Gil. "Tomorrow your father will kill a pig," she whispered. "Bring me a bowl of its blood and some of the meat, and I'll give you your mannequin back." "How do I know you'll give it to me?" asked Gil. Demdike grinned. "Trust me," she said. Gil stared at her grinning face and suddenly spat at her. "You'll never give it back," he croaked. "I don't trust anything before I trust a witch like you." Demdike wiped the spittle from her face with a vicious look at Gil. "Then we'll watch you burn," she screamed. She bent down and moved over the mannequin closer and closer to the fire until the little head began to turn shiny with melting wax. Sweat was dripping off Gil. His breath came in short, rasping gasps. I twisted round to look at him, and it seemed to me I could feel how his heart was burning deeper and deeper into his flesh. Soon I could actually see red marks creeping up from his hair down his face, and Gil began to moan in pain. The heat from the fire, the stench of the hovel, and the witch close to me, the bruises, the pokes, and above all the fear affected my mind. I began to feel as if it was I who were burning, I who was choking and swooning, and then the flames came. I could see them all around me. I could feel my throat scorching, my own flesh turning red and black. My nightmare was alive. I tried to scream, tried to turn my head, but I couldn't. Then I forced my eyes open. There was a face before me, the face I never dared remember. I twisted and thrashed my head from side to side. I screamed and screamed and screamed. The flames vanished abruptly. I saw Demdike spinning round in the heel as if she'd been violently struck. James and Lizzie ran towards her, but she spun right round into the fire on the back of the clouds of the sparks. Gil turned and ran, but I was rooted to the spot. James dragged his mother out of the fire by her heels, turned over the grass and began beating at the glowing rags on her back. But the witch was so covered in cloth it did not reach her skin, and in a second she was on her feet again, literally smouldering, clutching her arm, glaring at me. "Witch yourself," she screamed. "You burnt me, witch." This arm never touched the flames, and she pushed up the rags to show the arms that held the mannequin. The skin was livid red right up her arm, and it had been plunged into the fire. "Grab her!" shouted Demdike. James and Lizzie took steps towards me, but they hesitated to touch me now, and I was suddenly able to turn and run off down the hill after Gil, away from the fire, away from the witches, away from the scene of what I already knew my crime against man and God. The end of chapter 5.